Hey everybody, before we get started, just to remind you, this episode is brought to you by patrons like Ahagao Comics, Kwa, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Nestor Flores, Soto-san0424, and VideoGamer75. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it will help us out. Thank you for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is time once again for FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a 5-star. And it's that special time of year again. In case you can't tell from the extra special intro, it's time for another rinface. So today we're going to be talking about Ereshkigal, and we'll go through all that. But before that, let's talk about FGO Wanted, in case this is your first time viewing one of these videos. Wanted is a show we do to celebrate new 5-stars, usually limited, but, you know, if there's nothing else going on, we'll squeak a permanent or a story lock in there, just for the sake of videos and opinions and stuff. And normally we break down Wanted into 4 segments when we can. We talk about a character's real life, history, and folklore. We talk about their lore with a capital L, who they are, and what they do in the story of Fate and other Natsuverse works. Then we talk about their mechanics, so we'll discuss what the unit actually does, if you care about that sort of stuff overall, or you're looking to see if you need to fill a niche. And then lastly, we talk about their rarity. Not their star rarity, because obviously all of these are 5 stars, but we talk about their frequency of rate-ups, because that can be very, very important. For instance, I know a lot of people on our last Wanted were really interested in going all out for Abigail, because she only has a very limited number of rate-ups, basically this one on now and a follow-up one next year. But this isn't Wanted Abby, this is Wanted Eresh. So, without further ado, let's just jump on into the content, you know? Let's dive in. So, Ereshkigal is also known as Ninkigal or Irkala. The first 2 are variations on Lady or Queen of the Great Earth. So she's a Earth and Underworld associated deity. And Irkala, which you may know from other stuff in FGO, is actually the name of the Underworld. And so it's sometimes similar to how we use Hades to refer to both the god and the physical underworld. So she's originally a Sumerian goddess who is kind of kept around in some of the other symbologies and whatnot, and syncretized with other stuff. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit at the end. But her primary goal is to rule the underworld and to give judgment, so she's the absolute authority in the underworld. She is also described as Inanna or Ishtar, because those 2 goddesses are syncretic, older sister, and she is said to be her polar opposite. So to spoil some of the Fate stuff, this is probably why Eresh as a unit in FGO is chaotic evil, because Ishtar is lawful good, so they're polar opposites. Inanna is the queen of heaven, up in the sky. Ereshkigal is the queen of Irkala, the underworld, and the great earth. And in addition to just in general being important for those purposes, she's part of 2 major myths. The first, you should already know the general outlook of, and we've already talked about it in the Ishtar Wanted, is Ishtar Inanna's descent into the underworld. At some point, Inanna gets the idea to go into the underworld to extend her powers there, because she's really greedy. And she, you know, pops in to see her sister Ereshkigal. She has to go through the 7 gates and surrender all of her powers and clothing, and then is killed. But the other gods are a little like, we should get Ishtar back. So they shenanigans her out, and then Ereshkigal summons a horde of angry demons to go seize Ishtar, who won't go back until they take someone else down. And then Inanna Ishtar runs into her husband Dumuzid, who is not mourning her death, and is like, well, take that fucking loser. Another major myth is her marriage to Nergal, and we'll talk about how this varies in Fate, actually, because this is actually discussed for very obvious reasons. But basically, the gods once held a big banquet, and Ereshkigal, being the ruler of the underworld, could not come up with 10. She sent him a messenger to be there. He was treated well by all, with the exception of Nergal, the plague god, and the war god, who did not rise. As a result, Ereshkigal demanded Nergal be sent to atone. And depending on the version, either what happens here is that Nergal basically bullies his way in, like he sets up tricks to avoid the trap that Inanna fell for, and then they decide to get married, basically to share power, and then he still has to go above world, so Eresh is like, well, okay, you can leave for 6 months. And that's the season of war. In other versions, basically, Nergal is told while he's visiting not to do anything there, including have sex with Ereshkigal, but he fucking fails, like most mythological men, and then Eresh decides she likes him too much, so when he escapes back to the upper world, she's a little mad, and they kind of have to settle it out and fight it out. So, and scholars, by the way, have interpreted this as kind of reconcile the idea of two separate deities over trying to figure out who is in charge, and then it turns into kind of a romantic aspect later. There's also some other instructions, which is going to be important for Fate, that there are some allusions in fragmentary stuff that we don't have, such as from the poem Gilgamesh Enkidu in the Netherworld, where Ereshkigal is forcibly abducted by the underworld itself, in a sense, by the personification of the underworld to rule it. And in various versions, Eresh has no husband, she's married to Nergal, or her husband is called Gulgana, or Galana, that guy. So that's a weird niche thing that probably will come up somewhere if it hasn't already. And as mentioned before, she's syncretized with a couple of deities. For instance, in the Hittite religion, they have a sun goddess of the earth, who also rules as an underworld deity, which is thought to have been influenced by Ereshkigal. And the Greco-Romans syncretized Eresh with Hecate, the goddess of magic and secrets, which would probably have some very interesting relations with some other characters. So, in Fate, there are some slight changes. First of all, obviously, Eresh is a major character in the Babylonia chapter. Anime streaming on Funimation now. Wow. And also a major upcoming character. Yes, unlike Ishtar, she's actually involved, to my understanding, with the upcoming Christmas event that her banner premieres in. So that's neato. So she's a major backstory character, plays a lot of big roles in there. There's a lot of time done to her rivalry with Ishtar. And like Ishtar, she is said to be possessing part of the body of rinface. I'm trying to remember how they broke this up specifically. I think, is it said that Eresh is specifically possessing the discarded body? Hold on, there's a translation of her notes here. Yeah, so I double-checked. That might be in her Mat's profile, but it's not clear in her in-game profile. Well, we won't care about that. There's some discussion about which parts of Rin the various goddesses inhabit. Anyway, they obviously have their rivalry. There's some abilities referenced there. There's a lot of play on the whole. Clearly, the writers, which is, I'm going to assume, since it was Babylonia, they introduced Nasu as the scenario writer for both of them, that clearly he noticed the whole equal opposites thing, because there's a lot of that. And it's alluded to in other aspects of her story, though, that as opposed to literal marriage with Nergal, the result of the whole Eresh is not allowed to leave the underworld because that's where all her power and authority is, that at that banquet of the gods, Nergal did respect her, and she did demand to go see, and instead of it being a literal bonding or marriage, it's more of she took on part of his authority. So basically, as penance for him disrespecting her, the gods made him give up some of his divine authority to her, which is why she has her spear and other stuff going on. Because obviously the plot of Babylonia wouldn't work as good if Eresh understood what love was. Anyway, that's basically what you should know about with her, and hopefully you have played through Babylonia. In fact, you might have to play through Babylonia before you do the Christmas event. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the lore stuff. Super fun. Let's talk about those mechanicals. So, unlike Ishtar, who is heavily weighed in the attack department, one of the highest attacks out there, Gil is slightly above her, and then Arjuna is slightly above him, but she's still got one of the fiercest attack of the class. Naturally, Eresh goes the complete opposite direction. She has the highest HP of a Lancer so far. That includes all the way into JP. She has, 500 or so more HP than Lancer Artoria. And, even more than Enkidu. So, it's a lot. It's a lot of HP. Now, conversely, this does mean that for 5 stars, her attack is the lowest, but she's got some buffs and stuff that'll get around that. So, you see all the pretty normal stuff. Considering her deck spread and hit counts, her NP charge is actually quite good, with 4 hits on those quick and 6 hits on that art, plus some passives. she should gain NP gen pretty robustly when you're actually using it, though with her buster cards only being one hit, you're probably not going to get a lot of effort out of those. But, an AQQ with 4 hits on that extra, that's pretty good. So, pretty standard stuff. And, yes, as mentioned, she's got QQABB, the standard Lancer-type deck setup. So, soft on the arts, but decent on the quick and the busters. Her NP is an AoE buster, pretty standard stuff. So, first off, it basically does what Ishtar does, and it is in fact said to be the reverse of Ishtar's destroying the mountain. This is like Eresh rises up out of the ground to destroy the surface world kind of thing. It's also anti-mountain. It's funny. But it does the same standard, increase your buster strength first a little bit for 1 turn. So you get a little bit of damage mod on there. Could really use some overcharge to make it pop. And also the additional effect is if you have the protection of the underworld buff, which we'll talk about later, all those allies with that buff gain 20% attack for 3 turns, and that's just flat. That doesn't scale, that's just flat. So, this is kind of, you can see what one of Eresh's primary things are, is unlike Ishtar, who is a freakishly good damage dealer. Like, if you can get the timing on her Mana Burst gems, and she's got her, big 50% battery, Ishtar can put some punish, with her crit multipliers and stuff, whether that's NPBB chains, or just, dropping a fat AoE NP, clearing waves, all kinds of stuff. Eresh is a much more supportive character. While she will do damage to enemies and can actually do more damage than you think, even with her pretty low attack, her primary thing is that she stacks a lot of buffs in. Now, obviously, if you can get her to fire off multiple NPs while she's using her own buffs, that's great, but still, there's a lot of thing to be respected there with helping out allies. That's a charisma you don't need to level, basically, is her NP effect. Let's talk about those skills. So first off, she's got Concealed Great Crown, so this is her version of the whole, Great Goddess Authority type skill. This has this flatly, without any percentile, applies Invincible to herself for 1 turn. Pretty standard hard defenses. And then it has a chance each to apply Debuff Immunity, Cleanse Immunity, and Death Immunity. Now, unfortunately, without the unit out right now in NA, when I'm recording this, I can't be sure if that's each of those gets a roll or not. I think you get an opportunity for each of those, and it's not, exclusive, but I'm not sure. It could be randomly from those 3. But it's a 60 to 80% chance. So, Debuff Immunity, great. Cleanse Immunity, very interesting. And then Death Immunity is just thematic. Good for CQs, but even with an 80%, it's not the best. But you can pair her with certain servants who increase your buff chance. Once we get into her second skill, we're starting to get the themes here. This is Mana Burst Prison or Cage. So it's hard to say that combo Mana Bursts are standard, but it's a standard one of those. So it gives you the usual huge 1-turn buster up with Mana Burst, 30 to 50%. Which even with her lower attack, that is going to make an NP-BB combo hurt. Oh, and also it's a 30 to 50% NP battery, much like Ishtar's charging skill. So, yeah, that means that if you get at that higher level, you can combine her with something like Golden Sumo, Halloween Princess, the Martha CE that I can't remember the name of that just came out in Halloween, but that's the one that improves Buster and stuff. So you can use that to immediately clear waves if you want to. And then her third skill is Protection of the Underworld. So first off, this applies the Protection of the Underworld buff mentioned in her NP. It also increases all allies' defense, which scales 10% to 20%. It increases all allies' NP gain 20% to 30%, which can be quite useful. This is for 3 turns, mind. So this can help her kind of massage her own NP growth and also help your team out. And it increases all your allies' max HP for 3 turns, 2k to 3k. So we've talked about with Merlin that max HP is a really, really good buff, max HP up, because not only does it give you those extra HPs, but then it raises your cap if you actually happen to heal. And since she's a Buster-focused servant, you may be using her with Merlin already. The two of them combo very well to generate lots of HP and then heal up. You know, combine that with a single target heavy striker, or even just a couple of big damage AoEs like Eresh and like, say, Lancer Artoria maybe. You can come up with some fun combos to make that work. And so this, like I said, really solidifies Eresh is good at instant wave clears, and then she's not actually useless after because she's got her charisma-like effect on her NP, and she's got her other allied buffs and a little bit of endurance for herself. She can do a little bit of tanking. So you can theoretically have these very good sessions where you're like, okay, Eresh blows up a boss wave, and then you've already popped her skill, so you've got lots of buffs on your team going into a next wave to fight a boss or something. Also, all of her skills max out at 6-turn cooldowns, so you can get those all roughly on the same scale. Now, for passives, her inherent magic resistance is pretty low, it's only D, but she does have Core of the Goddess B, so it's much higher than you think. Pretty resistant to debuffs even without her debuff immunity, and gets a slight flat damage boost. The big one here is, as befitting her character, she has Territory Creation A+, so that one arts card, which is already 6 hits with decent NP gain, is at like plus 11% effectiveness. So when that arts card comes up, you are going to get some gen out of it, okay? Some real gen. So talking about CEs and team comp, like I said, obviously a Buster-focused Servant, Merlin works great. You can also do a waiver to just give her flat damage ups and lots of other effectiveness. Because she has a 50% battery, obviously for CEs, you have to consider all the ones I listed that give you starting 50% charge. And of those, anything that improves Buster damage and NP damage is going to be good. If you wanted to go for a more consistent kind of play, you could try Prisma Cosmos, but you may as well just wait for that battery skill to come back around, and then just make sure you've got enough NP to charge. And obviously, with it starting at 30% NP gauge gain, you can use stuff like Imaginary Elements and K-Scopes, if you want to, or need to start with. And then, other than that, it's all just, what do you want? You could probably stick her with a passive support type CE, like 2030, Ideal Holy King, that sort of thing, if you really wanted to. Other servants, Eresh herself goes well with allies who need all those things her final skill gives. So if you want allies to get 20% attack, defense up, 30% NP gain, and 3k max HP, that's really good. And like I said, she can take some punishments herself and clear some waves. Interestingly, I think she actually, not that I think they work perfectly because they, it would be a mixed class node. Though if you're trying to beat up an alter ego, I mean, that's still neutral damage. But I think she actually pairs well with Ishtar, because Ishtar has her own charisma type skill. They both have their batteries, they both have their invols. And then, Eresh gets out of Ishtar the critical strength, which is good because she's got a couple of quick cards that are going to be pretty decent being a Lancer. And then those Buster cards to capitalize on them. Assuming Ishtar doesn't slurp up all the stars like she does. But still, you know what I mean. You get a lot of extra effort out of that, so that improves Eresh's combat potential. And then Eresh right back can give Ishtar even more attack and NP gain, so they can kind of play off each other. But there's obviously probably not a lot of ideal nodes where you can do that kind of combo. It's just funny. And then unit rarity. So yes, this is a pretty big deal, kids. So far, there have been only 2 Eresh banners. Merry Christmas from the Underworld and Merry Christmas from the Underworld rerun next year. So if you're like me, barring certain GSSR shenanigans, this is your time to shine, now and next year. So be good about that. Though, that said, let me just, for the sake of comparison, let me just double check Ishtar's campaigns, because she's been in a few. Yeah, so, let's see, she premiered in Little Santa Altar. She had a 1 million downloads campaign, so Eresh will probably get one of those in the future. And I expect we're also probably overdue for, early next year there will be another Babylonia release gacha, which Ishtar was part of the first one. There'll probably be another Eresh raid up, but still, that's a ways in the future, obviously. And we also don't know how NA is going to handle that, because it's two years from now. But there's a potential that there will probably be more Eresh raid ups in the future, but as of right now, the 2-year forecast, that Clairvoyance EX, they're not there, so it's this one and the rerun. Anyway, hope you guys had fun with that. Obviously, I like the rinfaces a lot, and look forward to the Screaming Cowboy saga to continue with Space Ishtar in the future. That'll be a super fun one for a lot of reasons, but anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So, that's one at Eresh. Hope you guys had fun. I wish you luck on your rolls, so long as you wish me luck on my rolls, because obviously, they haven't happened yet. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I'll stop taking up your time. So, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also hit us up on our Discord. That link is in the description and on our channel page, if you ever want to join the conversation. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can always get our latest videos. And consider hitting the bell so you get notifications when the videos come out, so you always know, because Sometimes they drop a banner on me unannounced, and I'm like, oh shit, pull the trigger, launch the wanted. And of course, like it says at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early, you can get lots of other goodies, and it really helps us out. So, I will see you for the next Wanted, which should be Hokusai, I want to say, around New Year's. That'll be another fun one. Alright, bye everybody!